This week on the show.
Because I remember the last time we actually spoke and saw each other, you were working at a restaurant in Saint-Sauveur. And I was like, oh, you're doing photography. That's awesome. And watching your evolution on Instagram was so fascinating, by the way. It's you've come so far. It's so great.
Appreciate that. It's humbling. It's very kind of you.
Nicolas Glen.
Yeah, I don't know. And I was looking at administration. I think I was maybe also motivated a bit by money.
Right.
At that point in my life, which that and insecurities also of having stability made me go to administration. But it turned out I really did not enjoy that switch. But obviously it made me who I am today. So I am thankful for the decisions I've taken in the past.
Photographer.
The most difficult thing as a photographer is obviously, especially with newer models or people with less experience, is making them comfortable in front of the camera. And I think it's really my job to make them comfortable and to explain to them that this is really just you and we're capturing you at this moment. Right. And creating a moment, creating an energy, creating that moment through that person, the lens, and myself.
Entrepreneur.
So it's Espace Media. It's a visual content company for marketing and content creations for small and medium businesses in the Montreal area. We decided to do that, or I mostly decided with my girlfriend to start this through the pandemic, through just having not much to do and saying, well, look, I'm actually sitting down right now doing absolutely nothing. And it's been a dream of mine for the past few years to actually build something bigger through the photography. So,
yeah, does your girlfriend get annoyed with you when you take pictures of her? How is it working with her?
She actually, I think she likes it more than I do. Through becoming.
Did you slide in her DMs?
Involved.
She did?
No, I think I slid in her DMs after she liked like 30 of my posts.
Oh,
so that was like
okay.
Let's talk to Nicolas Glen on the Very Creative Podcast.
Nicolas Glen, how are you?
I'm doing wonderful. And well, first of all, I want to say thank you for having me on here today. I'm very grateful for that. It's actually my first podcast in this format. So.
Oh, is it? Or you did a podcast in audio format before?
No, I've had like recorded conversations, but not under this format. Yeah.
That's good. Well, do you want to introduce yourself and tell people how do we know each other?
Sure. So I'm Nicolas Glen. I come from Montreal. I was actually raised in the Laurentians, which is just north of Montreal. And that's actually where we used to go to school together in the Laurentian Academy, which was a small little school back then, but it's actually grown a bit. We were.
Has it?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think there was like over 2,000 students now.
Wow.
So yeah,
I didn't know that at all. It's crazy.
No, they
changed the name. Yeah, too.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Yeah. And what do you do? Tell the people what you do.
Yes. So I'm a creative, a photographer, retoucher, and now business owner in the visual world of digital marketing.
That's awesome. Yeah.
So it's been a very different year, but also a very interesting and fun year.
Yeah. How has it been for you?
At first, I think like many people, it was bit slower, is taking a step back, trying to understand what's going on in the world and accepting it and realizing, well, it doesn't have to be all bad. We can take that situation and try to find some positive in it, taking that time, that kind of forced break, if you will, to work on ourselves. So that's kind of what I tried to do, is try to see what I could do with this opportunity, free time, I guess. So it's out of work for a few months.
Yeah, you stopped taking pictures?
Yeah, well, at first I also work contractor as a retoucher. So at first, like, the studios got closed down.
Right.
We weren't able to go do work there. So I was trying to figure out ways to work in certain studios. Then they opened up, like, Quebec government allowed some creative work to continue on. But I had to adapt the strategy a bit to be able to continue shooting. And at the same time, I think motivation also was kind of put to the test.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, so through the summer, then I started shooting again, and now we're back in winter where I'm again planning the next year to come. So
yeah, has it been difficult to shoot with mask and everything? And what's the process?
I think now I'm used to it. I think it's about just like already photography is something that has a bit of distance between it, between the lens and the person. So like keeping those restrictions were quite easy, and having a mask on. It's difficult sometimes. I catch myself just saying, "Hey, do this face," and I'm like, "Oh, well, you can't see my face." So, or like try to do this pose and then smiling to someone, and you're like, "Oh, well, you don't see my smile," so I have to practice smiling with the eyes and kind of communicate differently and use words more than physical actions. Or yeah.
How do you feel the people that you're taking pictures of feel? What did they tell you? Do they find it different? Is it the same for them? How is it?
I would say for the models and the clients, it does feel a bit different, because you do have that little moment of like, I feel like photography is the moment you create with the other person,
right?
Where you like create a connection and you actually like build something creative. It's not about just the mood board, the concept. You actually have to go into it, have a conversation, and build up to like capturing that little moment. And sometimes communicating just with the words, not seeing the facial expressions, or having that kind of distance to always have to hold. It's difficult. Like, you can't necessarily go and show them the pictures right away. You have to like wait. You have to be like, hold the camera, or wash your hands first. So there's that little bit that's a bit different. But I think the model stays comfortable in the most of the time, since they don't have a mask on. So for them, that side of the work is not that different, but there is some adaptations that have to be done. Like at first, we couldn't have like a makeup artist. You couldn't have a stylist touch the person
because they were touching them. Okay, right.
Yeah, so it has changed. I think we've gotten a bit used to it, and we've like seen what we're able to do with still respecting the guidelines, the guidelines from the government, and it's been an adaptation. I think that's really what it is.
Right. Well,
we have to adapt. If we want everything to be like it was before, I don't think we'll necessarily get back to that
soon.
Especially if we're only trying to reproduce that. If we take the right actions to move on, well, then it will bring us to a different point.
Yeah, it's not it's a weird time. It's weird time for creatives. Like, it has been beneficial for me as a creative. Like, it has given me more motivation, and like, you're always home and you can like work easily, but it's also like you don't live life anymore, because it's it's just weird. So that's it. It's a weird time.
It's a blend of working from home. It's difficult to differentiate the time you're at home for yourself and the time you're putting in work, and having those boundaries set on ourselves is difficult as humans. It's not something we're used to. So
do you find yourself sitting at the computer for long hours retouching, and more than you used to? Longer?
Not necessarily longer, but I feel sometimes I get drawn into it, and like it mixes with my personal work. So before I was able to really like categorize
Separate,
it and
yeah.
like go to a cafe maybe and say, okay, I'm gonna go a few hours there, go work. Now I'm like, oh, I'm at home working a few hours, doing something else, coming back to work, catching myself working at 11 at night, doing some more editing. I'm like, yeah, maybe I was doing that much before editing at those hours, but at the same time,
Right.
I know how I function, so I know my peak hours of productivity, and I still try to use those hours to be productive.
Yeah.
And at first, it was very difficult to like separate the time of what being almost 24/7 at home of like what's work and what's not work without having specific work like
Related things.
specific work sent out to me to be
Right.
done by like a certain time. So I have to really be my own boss in that sense of planning out my time.
Right. Yeah. So let's, I like on this podcast to explore how you became how you became a photographer. It's like how we became like, for me, an actor, I became a writer and everything.
Yeah.
I know a little bit about how you grew up, but not that much. Tell me about that. And when did you decide to just take your first picture, and what was that moment like? Oh, I can be a photographer.
Nothing stays buried forever, especially not the past.
Yesterday is Not Yet Gone, a mystery novel by Gabriel Veiga, host of the Very Creative Podcast. Available now, paperback and digital. GabrielVeiga.com. Buy it now.
So that's a interesting. I go back to like the beginning. What really gave me the sense of creating content? I've always been somebody that's been very interested in technology and
Right.
how it interacts with our own lives. And I always found that capturing images was a way to like immortalize those moments and actually tell a story different from what is happening, or actually just reproducing and showing that for kind of nostalgic moments. So if we go back to like when we were at school together, I remember you were already doing some filmmaking. We were doing some very amateur stuff, but it was fun. It was completely degenerate. We were kind of degenerates doing it, but it was a nice experience. And it
Let's just start that way.
It may have influenced a bit my path in what I was interested in.
Oh, really? Interesting.
In the years after that.
Yeah.
With that, I think my grandmother influenced me a lot. She has been a part-time photographer for many years now. So she always had like the newest cameras, the newest little things, and she kind of handed those down to me over time to always play with them and having that positive reinforcement of like, oh, wow, you're taking pictures. You almost have like a knack for it. And obviously never took it really seriously at that time. I was still young and discovering myself.
Right.
But as I grew, I went to CEGEP. I started studying cinema in arts. And at that time, I was interested in it, but I didn't have necessarily the passion for it. So I took a step back. I changed my studies and I went into more administrations. And going back into that, it's where I really felt the emptiness of what I was studying at the moment with my creative mind. I didn't find it to be well fulfilled. So I picked up my old camera and I was like, okay, I could actually just start shooting. And every day I would go out, try to grab a few pictures. And through time, it developed working with actually people. At first, it wasn't people. I was like, going to just capture like nice things I would see. So at first it was more the discovery phase of actually just grabbing pictures of random things. Right. But after that, I kind of put meaning into it and wanted to capture something deeper, more of an emotion to my images and create something that had a message through it. And through that, I also discovered Instagram.
Yeah.
Back then was still
that's how it started, right?
Yeah, it was this app that people would post pictures, and I didn't really take it seriously at first. I was like, nah, how's this gonna work out? How can I share my work on this? But it actually turned out to be the ideal tool for a photographer to share our work, build a community, to meet new photographers. And through that, that's really also what motivated me to continue. In that time, I also moved to Montreal. I continued my studies in business administration and marketing. So I always had this cap of like something that's, I would say like my right brain side, which is more the logical, and like administration having that safety, and something that's left brain, which is really just the creative end of me and trying to explore and trying to maximize those moments and go wild and free in that art.
It was really interesting to because I remember the last time we actually spoke and saw each other, you were working at a restaurant in Saint Sauveur, and I was like, oh, you were already doing photography at that point, and I was like, oh, you're doing photography, that's awesome. And like, it's my point is I was watching your evolution on Instagram was so fascinating, by the way. It's you've come so far, and even your first pictures were awesome. Like but now it's like it's so great, and it's just been awesome watching you. Yeah,
I appreciate that. It's humbling. It's very kind of you. It's been an experience, and it's been challenging also to know like what to share. Is it good enough? Like that whole thing of like, when you create content, you want it to be like to a certain level of what we imagine it to be. And sometimes when it comes out, it's not necessarily that, but through consistent work and always trying to improve what I've done in the past, I've been able to adapt my style and develop it throughout the years. But it's funny that you remember that back then in Saint Sauveur. That was like beginning.
Oh, really?
Photography.
Yeah.
I had like 1 or 2 contracts back then on the restaurant I was working at. Actually, like one of the first people that gave me like the opportunity to show my work and to actually trust me was like, yeah, you want to shoot our cocktails for our new menu? I was like, oh my God.
The restaurant let you do that. Yeah. That's awesome. Oh,
so that was like one of my first paid contracts was back then in Saint Sauveur. And I was like, oh, I can actually do something I enjoy and make a certain amount of money doing it.
Right.
And through that, I was like, well, okay, I should actually pursue this in a more of a business sense, while also maintaining the creative side. And it's been that since, I guess, 4 or 5 years now, of like having the business of photography, but also keeping the creative side and developing that more on my personal end. And now we're 2020, 2021 is bringing that really together to create something.
Yeah. So in CJEP, what was let's explore that a bit. Were you already creative at that point? Were you exploring photography, or because you said you were studying something completely different, administration, right? So what was that like?
So actually, the funny thing is that, I started in cinema, in arts, creative arts, and I actually enjoyed it quite a lot, but I had this pressure from, I guess, family and friends. Are like, "Oh, you want to go in cinema? It's tough, tough thing to go into." Okay, and I was like, "I don't know." And I was looking at administration. I think I was maybe also motivated a bit by money, at that point in my life, which I think we are motivated by.
We all are at some point.
I think it's motivated by growth, and money is a way to grow. So I think it's into that, and insecurities also of having stability made me go to administration, but it turned out I really did not enjoy that switch. But obviously it made me who I am today. So I am thankful for the decisions I've taken in the past.
Yeah.
And through that, like when I went into administration, I actually bought new equipment for photography. So I was like, it kind of like forced me to continue in a way. I told myself, look, you can go into administration, you maybe won't enjoy it as much as when you were in cinema, but nothing is stopping you from continuing to do what you enjoy in your free time. So in those hours where you're not in school, to actually go out and speak with people, go and create and just make that art. That is what kept me going.
Right. You couldn't stop yourself. Yeah, you were like, even though you had pressures and everything, what I'm hearing is you still couldn't stop yourself from, and you took advantage of, even though you were studying something else, you were just like, oh, I'm still going to take pictures and I'm still going to buy equipment, right?
And it just got even bigger when I moved to Montreal, where there was actually this community of people that did what I loved, which was taking pictures.
Yeah.
We actually
That's a big thing, finding a community. Yeah.
It is definitely, I think, probably one of the most important factors of what made me continue and believe in what I was doing was actually something that could be important and that could have value in the future. So,
yeah. Did you have people in your life at that point that were looking at your pictures and they were like, oh, who were your key people that were like giving you positive feedback and gave you a boost, if you had any?
At that point, I think it was really just the internet itself.
Right.
Being on YouTube, being on Instagram, or not even Instagram back then. It was just really looking at what other people were creating, and it kind of motivated me. At first, I think I wanted to go into filmmaking, and I maybe kind of still do, but I pulled myself back and I'm like, well, maybe you should start one frame at a time, and eventually maybe I would move on to that 24 to 30 frames a second. But for now, we're still doing one frame at a time. So I'm working on that, and I find it exciting in that sense.
Yeah. Do you still see yourself going into film? Or?
We are transitioning. Like in the projects I'm doing, I'm offering right now mostly photography content. Yeah. But we're starting to do like short animations. So like
is that your company that you started?
Yeah.
Okay. Talk a bit about that. What is it?
So it's Espace Media, or Espace Media in English. It's a visual content company for marketing and content creations for small and medium businesses in the Montreal area. Right. And we are expanding. We're open to other places, obviously. But that's where we're focusing our strength. And we decided to do that, or I mostly decided with my girlfriend to start this through the pandemic, through just having not much to do and saying, well, look, I'm actually sitting down right now doing absolutely nothing. And it's been a dream of mine for the past 2 years to actually build something bigger through the photography. So putting it, la mettre sur pied, sorry, it's spoken French, but like bringing the company up was a very nice learning experience, and also challenging at times to see like that actually creating a business takes a lot of time, a lot of resources, but it's also very fun process. Yeah.
So did it come out of nowhere, or did you just, were you looking to do that for quite some time before you decided to do that?
Yeah. So I think it's been something that's in me, is like that, going like one step further and including more people in the project, and having not just be the photographer, but having the photography be like a tool in the bag. And I guess mixed with the studies of commerce, it kind of played into my decision. I trust of I could do that. I was like, oh, it's actually it's doable. Right. It takes a lot of work. I was maybe at sometimes a bit blind to the amount of work that needed to be done, but with time, I've now realized that work that needs to be done has to be done in its own time. And if it goes slower, it's because I'm investing less time. And if it goes faster, well, we're investing at 100% into it, or 110%, and it develops that way. So it's been a different time, especially it's not the easiest thing to start a company through a pandemic, but it does give me the lightweight of not having like a signed studio where we have a bunch of equipment there. We're very small right now, where we have our kind of home built studio, and we're working out of here for now. So it's interesting.
Yeah. Has it been the word that comes into my mind, but is fulfilling. But has it been a different kind of experience through looking at what you were doing before and what you're doing now? What has it been for you creatively?
Yeah, I've definitely been learning a lot. I am motivated by learning. I do believe that learning for me is what motivates me to continue, and what actually, you said the word fulfilling, so I like that a lot. I think it gives me value of what I'm doing, and seeing the progress from where I was a year ago to 2 years ago, and where I see myself in 1 year, 2 years, even 10 or 15 years, helps motivate me to go forward in this project.
Right.
And also, well, depending on what the future reserves for us, depending on our world situation in 1 year. I had like a vision before 2020, like 2020 vision. It's corny a bit, but
what's your vision?
It was wrong. It was just wrong.
Oh, okay.
I looked at my crystal ball, and it was
what was it? What was it? What was your crystal ball telling you?
I had a vision of a lot of travel, a lot of going to explore new continents with different ideas for contracts. I wanted to do like a internship maybe in London or something like that, but then that just did not pan out how I thought it would. So it was kind of a reality check of, okay, I actually have to seriously look at what we're going to do and come back to the basis. Yeah. So I did a lot of intro.
Traveling does something else for photography. Yeah. Oh boy, it's something I miss too. Well, we'll see the crystal ball. I don't have a crystal ball with me right now, but we'll see what it says for the future. What do you consider a good picture for you? What do you think a good picture is?
Nothing stays buried forever, especially not the past.
Yesterday is Not Yet Gone, a mystery novel by Gabriel Veiga, host of the Very Creative Podcast. Available now, paperback and digital. GabrielVeiga.com. Buy it now.
What do you consider a good picture for you? What do you think a good picture is?
It's an interesting question. I don't want to go in like the technical side of because I know better that photography is more than just the technical side.
Yeah, creatively.
So creatively, for me, a good image is one that can translate emotion without having any words to it.
Yeah.
So how an image, when you look at it, you actually close your eyes and feel something that comes out from it, and that actually tells a longer story. So you could kind of feel what happened before the picture and maybe what happens after.
Yeah.
So that's what I like a lot. I like doing a lot of candid photography, like kind of catching someone in between two frames, catching that moment of someone like almost moving and that raw emotion that's actually the real person and not just a pose. Those images are what speak the most to me.
Do you find that those pictures get on your Instagram the most, or?
I'd say, it's also depends on who I'm following and what I'm looking at the most. But I feel that's probably what I gravitate the most towards. So the algorithm probably noticed that and shoots out those pictures to me more often. Right. But I also have a lot of different commercial work that's been shown to me, and that I guess influences my work.
Right.
I find it inspiring that the mix of commercial work and advertising mixed with the editorial and more artistic side, when those are done elegantly together, I think it really brings something that's beautiful to life.
Right. And you said in your the text you sent me, you said that you're really passionate about storytelling in your pictures, and now that you've mentioned that you're into film and looking at cinema, like it makes sense. It makes sense that you would go that way in photography. So talk a bit about how do you tell a story and how like your liking of doing that through your pictures.
So the pictures, they come up in many different ways, but often the story starts with a place.
Right.
So it could be outside, I'm walking or exploring on Pinterest or even on Google Maps, just looking through the streets and swiping, looking for places that inspire me. Right. And from there, I'll build a story out, build the emotions that I want to feel, find a model that matches those emotions, maybe a duo or something that brings in those things together. And through that, then have a stylist that complements that place. So I think it's the location for me becomes important. Right. And often it's not like the whole location, it's sometimes like a tiny little square. You obviously, I guess, since you do filmmaking, understand what's in the frame is what counts, and outside it doesn't really matter. Yeah. And it's interesting what you can create with just tiny little spots of light. That's
so interesting that you mentioned that I didn't realize that you pick a model for that. You said location or that vision, or both?
Almost location. Most of the time, I know a lot of people usually go the reverse route of like finding a person, I'm inspired by them. I have this thing with architecture.
So you do the opposite. Okay.
Yeah, I look at architecture, then I'm like, that could work well with a person, and I could draw this emotion, could make me feel this way, and right. I try to elicit feelings through images, and through the future, I guess, many images that tie in together and create a mood on. Yeah.
So going off that question, the last question, do you want to look at some of the pictures you sent me and just describe put it in context for people?
Sure. So it's a lady model with a hat and a blazer, with a kind of metal rod background in a staircase well. Nice. Yeah. So this place, I walked past it one night after work, and it's like, okay, this place looks like nothing else in Montreal, but at the same time has this kind of recognizable feel of old metal buildings. And this is an old port of Montreal. Right. So I felt something when I walked there, and I had to do kind of this whole shoot of finding someone that would be kind of the antithesis of this place. So somebody that looks very beautiful, that has this presence, and that takes away from this place. So it creates a contrast of kind of older to newer, almost like this LA noir vibe, mystique. Yeah. And
it does. It's like a film noir. Yeah, a little bit.
So for me, the feeling through this image kind of illustrates the mystery. So you kind of don't know where the person's looking out to, and looking from underneath. And
yeah, that's awesome. So you found the location, and then you were like, oh, let's find the perfect model. And how did you find her?
Usually I go through the agency. So I go on the agency profile, and I go down and write to the agency, see if the model is available for the dates. And
Interesting. Yeah. Okay. Do you want to look at another picture?
Sure.
Your girlfriend.
Yes. Beautiful. Lori. So this, I think it's one of my favorite images, just because I like triangles and lines so much. Yeah. So it's a model standing against a white, how do you say it?
Column. Yeah.
Yeah. A white column with a triangle of light shining on her face and appearing behind her through the shadows created by the other columns.
Yeah.
So, and what I like a lot is also how the white, the lighter part finishes on the light of her shirt, and the darker part is where her jeans start. So this was done kind of intentional, but through taking 30 images, I actually lined it up perfectly well. So at one point, like the model pose was not really thought out, but having the light align in a certain way, it was envisioned at that moment. This was not a planned shoot. It's just we're out and we decided, hey, I like this place. Let's try to take a picture here.
Yeah.
And that's often how I work for creative shoots. Obviously, editorial or brand shoots are more planned out, but this more like my creative portfolio I sent you, and this is where I feel the most comfortable is doing creative photography, and that's the one the creative photography is what I want to continue and maintain even through these different times.
Right. Does your girlfriend get annoyed with you when you take pictures of her? How is it working with her?
She actually, I think she likes it more than I do.
Oh, really?
She is a part-time model and stylist.
Yeah. Did you meet her that way?
We actually, yes, we did meet on a photo shoot a few years ago. So now it's almost been 3 years. And at first it was kind of this shoot, and nothing came of it. But through time, we developed conversations and became friends. And through becoming,
did you slide in her DMs?
Evolved. She actually, I think
she did.
No, I think I slided in her DMs after she liked like 30 of my posts.
Oh,
so that was like
okay.
I was like, okay, something's up. At that time, I was looking for different models for creative ideas and shoots.
Yeah.
So it worked out well. I was like, hey, do you want to shoot? And it was really not for like anything else than shooting.
Yeah. It was before you met. Huh.
Yeah. So that was like our first time meeting. We met on a shoot, and then our shoot went well. It was nice. She left, and a few weeks later we spoke again. I sent her back pictures, and I think she's always sending me more text. And at that point I was like not comfortable. I really did not want to mix like
work,
photography and creativity and relationships. So I was like not comfortable. I think she had a boyfriend even at that time. So it's like,
wow. Okay.
I wasn't like pushing or anything, but at one point I think we ended up seeing each other again, and really started developing a deep friendship through our communications, and we developed after that a relationship that's been going on now for 2 years and 3.
Wow! Congratulations!
Still strong. So,
that's awesome.
And I think the pandemic just made us also stronger. So that's the thing.
Yeah, you started the business together. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's really been a wonderful, wonderful relationship, and through that, it's been motivating. Yeah.
Yeah. So talk a little bit about the models that you work with. How was it the first time? Because I know like the first few pictures I saw of you on Instagram were people I knew, people that are your friends. But what was it like taking pictures of some stranger? Like because that's what they were. How did that feel? And did you were you nervous the first few times?
Yeah, I think the most difficult thing as a photographer is obviously, especially with newer models or people with less experience, is making them comfortable in front of the camera, rather than when you're just having a conversation with someone. You're actually having that lens, and they're trying to force a pose or force themselves to look nice or to smile. And I think it's really my job to make them comfortable and to explain to them that this is really just you, and we're capturing you at this moment. And creating a moment, creating an energy that actually makes the person flow and makes in that moment together that we're creating that moment through that person, the lens, and myself, to capture something that's unique and that they like. Like they like seeing themselves through that moment.
Yeah.
So I think it's very important to create a moment where the person feels comfortable, they feel alive, they feel like they can be themselves, and also be themselves, but more beautiful, like in that, or shown in the best sense.
Yeah, because I had a model on this podcast that was going to air in a couple of weeks, and she was telling me, I asked her, how do you feel about photographers sometimes, or because some are creepy, and
so, yes, some don't do photographies for the right reasons. So
yeah, so how do you reassure them that you're not that guy that they've heard? Because there's a lot of stories of that, just a lot.
I think it's important to make the model feel comfortable, or any person for that matter. Obviously, I like to tell them they can come with someone. They can feel comfortable bringing a friend, or bringing their parent, or their boyfriend or girlfriend. And also, often we do have stylists, makeup artists on set with us.
Yeah, so you're not alone with the model.
Yeah. So like in the beginning, like sometimes we were outside and it was more like not organized at all. So it's just like, hey, come shoot. And obviously the person had to like say, oh, is this person creepy? I don't know. And then they come out and we do the shoot and it's like, oh, went really well. And they're like, can I post pictures? And so it's also creating a reputation. I think a reputation can be destroyed very fast, especially in Montreal, where the community is quite small. So if you do have a reputation of not being decent with the people you work with, they can really ruin your
and it's also
the whole industry.
I think it's also easy if you're starting to have a reputation and you have all these awesome models that have been on your photos on Instagram or whatever, and then it's easier to, like, some people get carried away with that. It's just it's a power play. It's just I don't know. It boosts their ego, and it just but you didn't feel that for you.
Really, I try to be careful. As I said before, I really don't want to mess around with thing relationships and work. For me, that drawing that line was very important. Even though now I'm with the model, I trying to make it clear that,
and you're happy.
It developed. It developed in a way that's nurturing and natural, and actual, like, relationships at work do happen. So I think that's when you're at work, people do develop relationships. It's not something that's unheard of either.
Yeah, so, but I think it's good to have that line, and just if it happens, it happens. But you shouldn't do photography for that.
Exactly. It's really having that moment of introspection of, why am I doing this? What is my end goal? What is the plan? And for me, examples to tell stories, to share emotions, and to make people feel like they could show themselves in their best sense, and not just have those pictures that are taken off a phone. Sometimes they can be very nice. I don't have anything against phones. I think phones are a great tool for photography, but working with someone, it's creating a moment that's a bit more intimate, but in a sense of creativity. Like,
that's interesting. So you talking about creativity, you sent me something that you said, being creative is a necessary skill for life. Why do you think is that?
Yes. So creativity in its rawest sense is being able to have ideas and execute them. I believe as humans, we do need to be alive, is to have ideas and to continue. I think that if we're not being creative, we're locking ourselves out of some joy. I didn't mean it, like, I didn't want it to sound like you absolutely have to be creative to live, but through every
because a lot of people would argue that they're not creative, and
but
they can't be.
but I would argue to those people that if they look at what they do, they actually are creative.
Right.
Especially in just by, if you're cooking at home, you can be creative in the way you cook. You decide the ingredients you want to put in your meal. You don't necessarily always follow a recipe. You go a bit off the line, then you are being creative in those moments. When you're reading, you're creative in your mind. You're making out scenes. When you're at work and you have to type out something, well, then you put in your own personality in it, and that becomes you being creative. So it translates more into, like, doesn't necessarily mean you're an artist and you're making or writing or drawing or painting or doing a specific art. It just translates into your activities of how you do them, and how we adapt to our environment is what makes us creative.
Yeah. Do you, I completely agree with that, but do you think that's because you're creative and you know what it's like, do you think that influences your perspective on that? Or because you're not the the surgeon or the other kind of person?
The surgeon can't, like, start cutting him however he wants, but we decide to work at home and have something be different than what other surgeons are doing.
Right.
But yes, I do think because I studied in this field and do this photography, we do create stuff. We do have an output of content or an output of stuff that we make. As humans, like, if obviously I think it's dangerous if all we do is consume without having anything go out. It does tend to be a trap. This being confined like this makes it harder to have an output of creativity, but it doesn't need to be big things. It can be very small things. Like I said, just when you cook, you can be creative.
I'd love to talk about, like, to talk to a brain expert about this, or someone like with the expert in creativity who studied it, because that's so fascinating. Are only the people that are creative think that everyone can be creative? Like, it's really interesting. It's an interesting topic. I want to know.
And I think it's obviously something that can be developed. Like we're not locked into a way we are. Like, if you want to start painting, even if the painting sucks, you're being creative. You're pushing your mind to do something.
Because we've all, like, studied art at school, in high school or elementary school. We've all done it. So we, like, what you say is kind of right, because we've all experienced creativity in some way or the other. So it's interesting. I'll look into that.
So obviously, like, the act of being creative is maybe a bit like we give too much importance to the act of being creative, when we could be creative and do things, and by doing them many times, it'll develop into something, and we could be surprised to what it develops into. Like, a lot of people around me say, well, you do photography, I could never do that. I'm like, well, pick up the camera and
try it.
Like, I don't have the equipment. Well, the phone is probably the best camera we have on us all the time. Like, it's
it's the same for writing for me. Like, I can write. People tell me that all the time. I don't have the imagination. Well, all those things can be developed if you're putting the time and effort into it. If you're just like sitting in the computer one afternoon and try to write and then give up, well, I don't know what to tell you, because it's thousands and thousands of hours, and you just have to do it, and it's gonna suck. I'm sure, like the first few pictures, you were not happy with yourself, and you didn't think you were good, and that's okay, because that's part of the process. It's okay if you're not Da Vinci when you're doing the art or whatever. It's okay.
And
you can become that, though, if you work hard.
It's envisioning that, and it's understanding that, for example, I'm here and I see myself here.
Yeah.
There's this whole space in between that needs to be traveled before you get there, and it's not going to be a straight line. It's going to be this process of developing the art, developing our work, developing our minds. It's something we do throughout a lifetime.
It's frustrating at times, but it's also the most fulfilling, though, because once you get to a point where you start to have success, and I don't mean money, I mean success in the way your art is becoming appreciated by people and by you, because that's the best work you've done yet. It's so fulfilling. It's just the best feeling in the world. And frustrating, but you got there and you put the effort in, and
and it's continuing to put the effort in.
Yeah,
it's important. It's being consistent. It's not sitting down saying, okay, I did enough. One day I maybe I will, but for now I'm not at that point, and I do see a lot of failures in my future to become a lot of wins. It's part of the process of growing is actually doing it wrong first, and then learning from that experience and becoming better.
You're always learning. You're always you'll never be the best you can be. You'll never, it's and that should be your objective. That should be also what drives you about it. One of your drive, but you like I always say on this podcast, you should be happy too with yourself, because that's the most important thing with all that. But
being happy of ourselves and happy of the progress we've done through looking at our past experience, looking at what how far we've come over 1 year. See, if we're younger, those laps are longer.
Right.
The progress we do in a year. When we get older, I believe will be smaller, but still making a lot of changes throughout that time, and we can surprise ourselves in how much progress we're doing when we actually put in the work every day, a bit by bit. It capillary compounds to something that becomes bigger than what we could have envisioned before. So it's important to keep on grinding in that creative sense. But
so is there
it doesn't need to be the big wild Da Vinci thing every day. It's normal that we're going to have days where pictures I take are going to suck and I'm not going to be happy with them, but it's fine, because I go out the next day and I look at those pictures, and then the next day I take better pictures and say, oh, look, there's this tiny incremental improvement, but through that it's able to compound through the experience I take every year. So
you seem also to have put a lot of work into your style, like you were describing before, picking a location, and sometimes it's more freelance, but picking a location and then looking for the model. And is that what you would consider your style to be? How would you describe it?
It's an interesting question. I haven't.
Or is it always evolving?
I think it is definitely still evolving. So I can't put my finger down exactly on what my style is. I try to not label my style too much.
No, that's fine. But if you can describe at the moment, what does it look like?
I would say that the nearest thing I could describe it to is high fashion editorial images. So mixing in the human side, so having something that human, that's beautiful, with something behind it that also tells a story, and having those two integrate together through contrast or through being complementary to each other, and telling that story to the world. So having a message that can be translated, and sometimes there is no message. It's just you're going to see it and you're going to feel something, and that's what it's supposed to be. It's not supposed to be this big wonderful thing all the time. Like it's nice also to just have some little moments of just catching creativity in its raw form without having it be too much edited.
Yeah. That's good. That's cool. I look forward to seeing how you, because I said it before, but it was fascinating following your journey on Instagram and just seeing how that evolved, and then you working with all those models, and I saw some actresses in there too that I know, and it's great to see you do all that. And so where do you see yourself going in the near future post this pandemic in terms of your photography? What would you like to do?
Well, first of all, thank you for that. I appreciate you following my journey, and I have been as well. I saw you released a book.
Yeah, thank you.
I do want to try to get my hands on at one point.
Yeah, I'll send it to you. Yeah.
Very kind. And also you're acting in this podcast. Obviously, it's something that's quite great to do. I think it's a great way to share and to communicate, especially in these times where we can't be in person. Yes. So to go back to your question, in the future, I do envision a studio. So right now we're working from home mostly, but I do want, through this pandemic, I realized working from home is not the ideal. Like for certain projects, obviously we do rent out a space to work. It's not always convenient to work out from home, but I would like to have a dedicated space that's shared with other creatives that could collaborate together on larger projects and have our own little things under a house almost of creatives. So that's what I'm trying to develop this company into for the future. Is
working with other photographers or filmmakers, or
photographers, filmmakers, designers, graphic designers, illustrators, so web developers, stylists, and have those people in-house and be available to work on projects, but also let them be their own freelance artists too, to have that space to work in. So
giving them an opportunity. And what would you say, a platform, or what is it? What is it? Just somewhere to
would be the space.
Yeah,
so
the space,
having
your studio, you mean? Okay.
Yeah, so in that space they could be there, exchange some ideas, have that hub of ideas develop, and have those people grow within that space. They can grow out of it. People come in, and then maybe translate that into a platform or a platform, where people could find work or develop ideas. This is still ideas that I am working on currently, so it's not entirely developed yet, but I do envision that for the next 3 to 5 years. So
I think that's great. I think that's that sounds awesome. So let's talk about before we end with our game, how do you deal with your anxiety, because creative people have anxiety, and talk about how your brain works and how you just when you encounter creative blocks and just creative anxiety, how do you solve that?
Nothing stays buried forever, especially not the past.
Yesterday is Not Yet Gone, a mystery novel by Gabriel Veiga, host of the Very Creative Podcast. Available now, paperback and digital. GabrielVeiga.com. Buy it now.
All right. So that's an interesting question. And I do have a good answer for you. So, My brain works probably similar to a lot of brains around here, creatives and not so creative people. I do have a slight tendency to be ADHD and to be hyperactive, but I have learned through the time to pace myself and to recognize those moments where I am more agitated, I'm unable to concentrate, and to bring myself back into that flow state of creativity. So the tools I've developed to help me start with very basic things such as sleeping well, eating well, doing proper exercise, and feeding my brain with content that actually motivates me.
Yeah. What kind of content are we talking about? Yeah.
So reading books, watching videos on YouTube or on TV that bring in positive ideas and are motivating. There's through a new technology or something that's different, that's not necessarily related to photography, or that also can be related directly to creating content. But I try to, at least in those moments, not steer myself away from those creative videos and not go into like something that's not nurturing for my mind. For example, watching news, I know I have this tendency to like watching news in the morning, but I felt that has an effect on the rest of my day. If I watch the news and it's very negative in the morning, and it's always the same run of stuff, like, COVID this, COVID that. At first I was like stuck onto it, and then I'm like, okay, no, you have to put something different in your brain in the morning, otherwise it's going to have an impact on your whole day. And my other thing I've been dabbling a lot with is meditation. So the action of doing nothing, of really emptying my mind, of focusing on having nothing going on in my mind, has been actually almost life-saving.
How do you do that? I need answers.
I actually have this app from I don't remember, Sam something. It's called Waking Up. So it's guided meditations for like 10 minutes, and it teaches you the process of exercising, of emptying your mind and breathing. And it really, after that, it's translating those moments into like micro moments of meditation where like before I respond to somebody, rather than responding really fast and irrationally, I would take a moment, breathe in, breathe out, be like a few seconds, and then responding, and not having to have that response come out right away. It really made a difference in how I interacted with myself, how I interacted with my work, how I interacted with people, and my creative also, I think, has evolved with that.
You find it helped? Yeah,
absolutely. I think it's a combination of many things. Obviously not easy for me to maintain these things every day. I won't lie, it's not a daily practice. It's not something I'm yet at the point where I'm able to do it necessarily every day, but I try to do it on a weekly, consistent basis of going back to it every time I see myself drifting. Do
you find that age and experience, we're not that old, but do you find that as you get older and get more experience too, do you find like your mind is like, I don't stress as much as I would stress before? Do you find that something?
100%.
I
Me feel too. when I was younger, at least in the teen years, I felt how every decision I made would have like an impact for a very long time, and everything that happened to me would be the end of the world. And I was very agitated, very reactive to things, and I realized that was not nurturing. That was not helpful for me or my relationships with people or my development. And having anxiety attacks of like, oh shit, what happened? This is going to be not the end of the world, but this is going to be the end of my reputation. It's going to be, everybody's going to hate me now.
That's what you think, right? It's like, not that. It's not going to kill you.
Then realizing with time that it actually isn't that bad. And I realized that actually time is often what helps a lot of these things. It's
failures too. Like you have to go through failures a little bit to just learn from them and just see it's not the end of the world. You're not going to die.
Yeah. It's these reality checks that, especially failures are one of the best learning experiences for me.
Yeah. How do you find, go. Yeah.
Through failure, I think I find I'm able to grow. I think when I'm trying to be too perfect and have something nailed down, I slow myself down and the output of it. Yeah. So at one point, some of these things just have to come out. And if it's not good, it's not good. I learn from it. If it's great, well, great. I'm really happy. And if it's in between, well, I look at it, I see what I can improve and what went well and adapt. And that's really what helps me to grow. Like, I think when I was younger, I didn't think our mind could grow. I thought our mind was stuck in what we knew at 14 is what I would know at 24. And I was looking at adults. I was like, they seem to have it just as figured out as me. And I grow a year after. Oh shit, I don't have anything figured out.
No.
And I the older I get, I'm like, oh, okay, this is just being an adult is just kind of like being a kid, but with many responsibilities. So and I think what reassures me is I know that I am going to grow and I'm going to learn new things and they're going to help me in life. And where I'm at right now is not my top level yet.
Yeah.
Or maybe it is, and I'm just going to go down from here. But
that shouldn't be your goal.
Exactly. Try to not be cynical for. Yeah.
Because my other question was, it just popped up into my head, but because social media gives me anxiety sometimes because I just post for work and I don't really care about social media as much as I cared when I was a teenager or like in the beginning of my 20s. But it's social media can give you a lot of anxiety if you post the wrong thing. Am I going to post the wrong thing? Am I going to make a mistake? How has it been for you anxiety wise and creatively?
I feel that at first I felt a lot of anxiety. I can understand what you're saying through how social media has made you felt that way. Like I felt that often with especially Instagram, where people are cherry picking the best images, the best moments. And if you follow someone long enough, you can say, hey, this person has no issues. They're always happy, always dandy. But you realize that's not real life. That's just a tiny intersection of their life that they're choosing to share to us. And I realized that's kind of the same thing. If I have something to share, I'll share it. And if I don't have necessarily anything to share, it doesn't necessarily mean I'm not doing anything. Yeah. Like at one point,
it's weird. People will think that. We think that people will think that.
That insecurity of like, oh, if I'm not posting every day, people will think I've stopped doing that. It's like, well, I'm just working on different things, and I'm working maybe even more in the background. That's actually giving me time to be free and not have to post all the time. But at the same time, I do believe sharing that content does make us improve in our creative endeavors. Yeah. It makes us kind of a bit of accountable to others and to ourselves. So it does help too.
I mean, it must be weird to, I don't want to give you anxiety right now, but it must be weird to be a photographer on Instagram and just seeing other photographers doing it. Like you must compare yourself, or do you do that, and does that give you anxiety sometimes? So
the comparing aspect of it, at first, I think it was more negative of like, look, this person's so much better than me. I won't ever amount to that. But after working on after understanding the photography, understanding what the people are doing, getting more knowledge, I'm like, okay, well, it's possible to do. I just don't have the resources to necessarily do that. And it doesn't bother me. I'm not living their life. It's not my life. I'm doing my own thing. I have my own deadlines, my own timeline, my own accomplishments I want to accomplish. And it doesn't matter what they're accomplishing necessarily. Like it pulls my focus away from what I'm trying to do if I concentrate too much on what others are doing. I think it's wonderful to look at other people's work and to be inspired by it.
Yeah.
And I think that's more important than to feel that seeing other photographers is not something that's going to push me down anymore. Like at first I felt in Montreal, like I was very happy when I arrived. I saw all these photographers. I was like, oh, I'm learning a lot. I'm seeing all these people, and it's like, oh, I can make it out here. And then at one point I was like, oh my God, there's a lot of really talented people in Montreal. I'm never going to be able to break out of it. And then at one point I'm like, well, there's a lot of talented people, but there is also a lot of people looking for talented people. So it balances out, or we have a larger pie available for everyone. Like it's not a limited game of people needing portraits or needing content. It's something that's growing. So there, as many photographers as there are, there's going to be even more people looking for photographers and looking for artists and looking for creatives to make content for them and to help them in their strategy and their artistic building and what they're doing. Like it's about being present and about being available to those people rather than focusing on what we're not doing. Like, getting out there and actually doing the work to be available to.
Yeah, I think that's great. I also think that we all as creators, we have to understand that it's also our voice, and like it's us, like it's you when you're creating your art. What can differentiate you from other people is what you say about it, how you think about something, and like it's going to be you if you understand that the way to make the best art is through yourself and understanding yourself. Then I don't know what to tell you. It's just going to be better for you. It's just yeah. So
it's important to follow our emotions and our intuitions in this artistic world. I think it's unfortunate that people, we mentioned it, that don't want to be creative or say they can't be creative.
Yeah.
Like nothing is stopping you from being creative. Like, well, saying that with a grain of salt, I do understand people have different situations and
different responsibilities.
Yes.
Yeah. But it's about, if you have the time, then why not try it and just put the hours in and see you're gonna find something. I'm telling you. Okay, so let's. This has been really good, by the way. This has been fantastic. So
really glad we've done this.
Yeah, me too. So feel good game. What's your feel good movie?
Feel good. I would say anything from Adam Sandler. I think was it's just very easy to follow. Except his last movie, Uncut Gems.
Yeah,
was not as much as a feel good movie. It's very anxiety driven, and
I've heard that. Yeah,
I came out of it. I was like, oh, I don't feel as good as when I was younger and watching these movies, and like they're just easy to watch. This one was more of an art piece. It's very different from what you used to do, so it was nice to see.
Okay,
evolution.
Adams. What's your favorite Adam Sandler movie then?
I'm gonna go with. I'm hesitating between what's it called? The Happy Gilmore, like his first or second one. It's just excellent, but I watched it again recently. I'm like, oh my God, so much violence and people getting brutally murdered. I didn't remember those scenes from when I was younger. Yeah.
It's crazy the perspective, right? When you watch those movies now at our age.
Yeah, we have this, I think, more maturity. We're able to understand that.
Yeah. So Happy Gilmore, okay, is your pick.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with
that. Feel good TV show.
I'm gonna go with The Office.
Okay.
Yeah. I think that I can just put that on anytime, any episode, at any point, and I know I'm gonna have a good laugh, and it's gonna make me happy.
That's good. Feel good song.
That changes often.
Yeah, you can't say right now.
Right now. I'm gonna go with a song I've really depends on the mood because sorry, I'm really thinking into these questions. I didn't.
No, it's fine.
I don't think they're supposed to.
I
be
love
these
that.
songs.
No, I love that. Yeah.
It all varies. Like some mornings I enjoy some classical music and I'll just turn on the radio on a classical thing while I'm driving to work, and it makes me feel good. But I think this song has been in my head for a while. Is Dancing in My Room. I found it on TikTok.
Okay. Is it a TikTok song? Yeah.
Yeah, it's a TikTok song. So it's at the point where I'm feel good when I hear it, and I'm now maybe just
annoyed.
Sorry to be annoyed.
Right. That's it. Okay. Do you have a feel good picture since you're a photographer?
That's a good question. I'd say anything that's in black and white will make me feel really good. I like have this obsession with maybe the removal of color just makes it less
black and white's awesome. Yeah.
So yeah, I can really feel something out of those pictures. Like
have you ever wanted to make a movie in black and white? I've always wanted to do that.
I didn't think about it consciously.
No?
I'm sure I would probably envision something in black and white and you're happy with it, but no, I have not gotten to that point. Though I've thought about a lot of pictures in black and white. So
yeah, do you have a specific picture in black and white that you really like that you can take of, or that's not yours?
There's one well, it's not necessarily a feel good picture, but
if anything, you'll send it to me later and I can share it.
It's a picture in black and white. I saw it on Magnum Photos.
Right.
This magazine that shares old pictures, and was influenced from one of the very first pictures of a man jumping over a puddle with an umbrella. This one is in front of like the Eiffel Tower, and there's like a couple beside kissing.
Right.
Man jumping over a puddle, and I saw it a few days ago on Instagram. Really,
awesome.
I had to share. It really made me feel.
Send it to me. I'll put it up on the screen. Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on. This has been awesome, and so good to see you again and talk to you.
Yes, it's really great, Gabe. Thank you for this podcast experience. In the future, I'll be happy to come back on if you have
for sure. Yeah,
another thing, or we could also just speak off air and have discussions. We both live in Montreal, so definitely.
Well, thank you so much for coming on the Very Creative Podcast, and
my pleasure. See you soon. Thank you.
See you soon, man. Bye.
Bye.
You've been listening to The Very Creative Podcast with Gabriel Veiga. To find out more, go to gabrielveiga.com/podcast or find us on social media at The Very Creative Podcast. You can also watch the podcast on YouTube. Just search for The Very Creative Podcast and subscribe.